Sometimes, life itself interferes with living. You get so wrapped up in the chaos of daily life that you find yourself merely existing instead of truly living. You take a deep breath, keep going with whatever you're doing, and suddenly realize, maybe an hour later, that you've forgotten to breathe again. Many people say that's what life feels like nowadays. But if that's the case, is it even worth it? Sure, having it all sounds amazing, but is it truly worth sacrificing your life for? Staring at the microwave clock blinking 11 o'clock second by second was starting to grate on my nerves, and my headache wasn't getting any better. You'd think that living in Florida for over 2 decades would have made me accustomed to these annoying power outages, but that wasn't the case. For years, I'd been telling myself I needed one of those big whole-house batteries to solve the problem. Somehow, I never found the time, it just didn't seem like a priority. Especially not now. When I arrived home that evening, I deliberately left the overhead kitchen light on. But it didn't make much difference, the LEDs on the appliances in the room gave off enough glow for me to read a newspaper. The room was dim, I was alone, and I wanted to keep it that way. I tried shifting my weight on the bar stool to get more comfortable, regretting ever letting Connie talk me into buying those particular chairs. They were about 10 centimeters taller than necessary, with barely any padding on the seats, and they had cost nearly 40% more than the chairs I originally wanted. I'd given in, thinking I'd hardly ever sit on them. And yet, there I was, stuck on one for over 2 hours that night. It was shaping up to be quite the evening, or perhaps I should say early morning. A glance at the clock showed it was nearing 2:15 a.m. As an older long-distance runner, ice packs had become my saving grace. After returning from a 20 to 25 kilometers run, I'd take frozen bags from the freezer, wrap them around my aching Achilles tendons, and place more under my swollen feet. I hated the cold, but I hated the pain even more. I hadn't even heard of fasciitis before I suffered from it, enduring months of agony. I learned the hard way what bad running shoes, running too fast, and skipping ice therapy could do to an aging body. My routine became a cycle, 10 minutes of running followed by 10 minutes of rest. The pain during those first 10 minutes was brutal, but as my feet went numb, it became more bearable. I alternated icing on and off to minimize the damage. In the winter months, I'd sometimes wade waist-deep into our unheated pool instead of using ice. It had the same effect and cooled my entire body. Even in Florida, winters could be surprisingly cold, but it worked. This time, though, the ice wasn't under my feet, it was wrapped around my arms and pressed against my face. The stretch from Thanksgiving to New Year's had always been my favorite time of year. I'd even set aside a week of vacation to savor every moment. Even the annual corporate Christmas party, which I usually dreaded, became somewhat tolerable. As a manager, my attendance was mandatory. At the very least, I had to show up, eat dinner, and mingle before sneaking out. The bar would be open for the first hour and a half, and most employees used that time to drink themselves into a stupor. I'd sip my beer, try to stay composed, and attempt to keep things under control, though it wasn't always easy. On more than one occasion in the past decade, I'd had to call the police because of a belligerent drunk. My wife, Connie, used to graciously attend my holiday parties, but last year, she declined, claiming she had a headache. We both knew it was a lie, but I let it slide, especially when she made it clear that my presence at her party wouldn't be required either. There is a God, I had thought to myself at the time. This year, however, things were different. When I asked Connie if she wanted to come with me to my company's party, she started making excuses weeks in advance. I already knew her answer. "Why don't you go, and we can have our own party when you get home, if it's not too late," she'd said. With an offer like that, I didn't think I'd stay for dinner at the party. But I did. I made it home a little after 11:30, and we ended up having our own intimate holiday celebration that night. When her party rolled around, I resolved to avoid attending. I planned to propose the same deal she had suggested to me. That was until I saw the dress she'd picked out for the event. Holiday dresses are meant to be festive, daring, and a bit short, but hers went beyond all three. "You're not seriously wearing this on Saturday night, are you?" I asked. "What's wrong with it?" "I think it looks amazing on me," she replied, sarcasm lacing her tone. "Honey, that dress says you're ready for anything. Don't you have something a little more conservative?" "What are you saying?" "That it's too young or attractive for me." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "That dress makes you look like." "Like what?" she pressed. "Like someone I wouldn't trust to be out alone in it," I finished awkwardly. She didn't take it well. Our relationship grew icy over the next few days, but it was the holidays, and nothing could dampen my spirits. I was just about to leave the first room when I passed by the bathroom. Leaning against the wall near the door, I heard it. "Stop it. Get a hold of yourself, Steve's with me today." That was my wife, Connie's voice. "I can't help it. You brought his ass with you tonight, Connie. I got us a goddamn room for later." "I thought you said he wasn't coming." "It's not my fault," she replied. "He saw the dress you bought me and refused to let me leave the house without wearing it." "What, is he trying to play your lord and protector?" "Well, he's a little late for that, isn't he?" Then I heard him laugh. That sound, a mocking, smug laugh, made it clear, my promising star was climbing the career ladder on his back. Their conversation turned muffled after that, but I caught something about getting rid of me. Thankfully, I wasn't drunk because things were about to turn nasty. The champagne bottle sitting empty in the ice bucket next to me would have to do. Doug was at least 8 years younger, 20 pounds heavier, and 10 centimeters taller than me. But none of that mattered. I needed to prove something, to myself. Connie came out first, pulling off what she so eloquently called her dress. She passed right by me, not even noticing my presence. Doug followed right behind her. "Doug, you know what you really are?" I said as he glanced left and locked eyes with me. "An absolute asshole." He looked me straight in the eye and smiled. "Big mistake." I held the bottle in my left hand, hidden behind my back. If he'd done anything else, anything at all, I might not have taken it to the next level. But the look he gave me screamed, "I slept with your wife, and there's nothing you can do about it." Hearing me call Doug's name, Connie turned around to face us. Then everything happened all at once, yet somehow in slow motion. Even an empty champagne bottle hitting someone square on the head should cause unbearable pain. In the movies, the bottle would have shattered, and Doug would have passed out. But this wasn't a movie. Doug took the hit, but he didn't go down. I'm not a fighter. The one time I got into a fight, back in elementary school, I got my ass kicked. But this was different. Doug was going to pay, and I didn't care what it cost me. The next 5 minutes were a blur of punches. I landed some good ones, even breaking Doug's nose with a headbutt before 5 big guys finally pulled us apart. I don't know who looked worse by the end of it, but if you ask me, I kicked his royal ass. Doug spat blood and hurled curses at me, but this time I was the one smiling. That just pissed him off more. After some heated shouting and exchanged threats, someone suggested I leave immediately. Connie stood there crying, her mascara and makeup streaked down her cheeks, looking absolutely terrible. "Don't come home," I told her coldly. "I don't care where you go, just don't come home." 2 hotel security guards escorted me out to the parking lot. Half blind in one eye, I drove home slowly. Once home, I parked in the garage, walked into the kitchen, and headed straight for the refrigerator. Grabbing 4 ice packs and a Corona, I sat down on the bar stool at the counter. For hours, I iced my hands, drank my beer, and waited for the police to call. But they never did. Maybe tomorrow, I thought. Certainly by Monday. Looking at my red, swollen hands, I realized my vacation this year was going to be different. Christmas was less than 2 weeks away, and as usual, I hadn't started shopping. With next week off, though, I figured it wouldn't be a problem, especially now that I was single. When Doug pressed charges for assault and battery, my lawyer made a few calls. The charges disappeared almost instantly. It seemed Doug's superiors wanted to avoid dragging the company name into the mess. Connie tried calling a million times that week, but I ignored every single call. Even my 2 sons talked to her but refused to stand up for her. I guess I raised them right. Everyone around me tried to lift my spirits for the holidays, but the smell of betrayal lingered everywhere. The legal nonsense could wait until after Christmas. I wasn't about to ruin the holiday for my family. At her parents' house, Connie's mother spotted a FedEx truck pulling up to the door. The driver handed her a package. "It's for Connie," he said. Her mother signed for it and handed it over. Connie tore off the wrapping and opened the box. Inside was a black velvet ring box. Her face lit up with a smile, until she opened it. 2 bloody teeth fell out, bouncing twice on the tile floor before stopping near her father's feet. The next day, the divorce papers arrived.